Hey, what's up you guys? I'm Sara Lubratt, and a year ago I quit my job to start working for myself. I quit my job primarily because of client work over on Fiverr and content creation, but we're going to talk about how things have changed in the last year. Because while that's what allowed me to quit my job in the first place, the larger goal for my career is to be a full-time author. So we're going to talk about how things have progressed and where I'm going to go from here. We're going to be talking about income streams and how those things have changed. We're going to be talking about my writing progress. We're going to be talking about things that I've learned working for myself. And we're going to be talking about life outside of work within all of this. I also asked you guys for questions over in my YouTube community tab and over on my Instagram stories, and I got lots of questions, so questions that you guys asked will be sprinkled throughout this video. If you are newer around here and were not aware that I quit my full-time job, I have a video all about quitting my job. I have a video about the last 2 weeks of that job as I was preparing to make this transition. I have my income reports from the first couple of months that I was self-employed, and I have a 6-month recap about how things were going, and that basically things had gone well enough in those first 6 months that I told myself that I was going to do another 6 months and then reevaluate at a year, which is where we are today. And if you guys have already watched those videos of me quitting my last job, I don't want to bore you with the details, but I will say that at the beginning of 2022, I set a goal with my therapist that I wanted to be self-employed by the end of 2025, which gave me 3 years, and I thought that 3 years was a good amount of time for me to make enough money from non-job sources to then transition over into being self-employed so that I didn't have to work for someone else anymore. However, that changed very quickly. I would say I was probably 4 or 5 months into 2022 when I suddenly changed that goal from the end of 2025 to the end of 2022 was my goal to start working for myself. And then I started feeling a lot of resistance at my job, and my Fiverr client work was really starting to take off. And so then with a lot of talking to my therapist, decided to move that end of 2022 goal to then the end of August of 2022. And so then on September 1st of 2022, I started working for myself. And yes, this video is late, and that's okay. One of the questions that I've gotten a lot since I quit my job was, how much did you save before you felt safe and comfortable enough to quit your job? And let me tell you, I am not a risky person. I feel like I really need to think through things before I end up making decisions. So with a decision as big as this one, I kind of told myself, okay, I want to do 6 months. And if at the end of that 6 months I have made no money, I can get another job. I'll be fine. I just need to make it 6 months. And so what I decided to do was to set aside 6 months of my gratuitous expenses, which for me means cutting back on nothing. So if I made absolutely no money for 6 months, my life would not change. Things like I could still indulge in some of my expensive hobbies, which is like skiing and like new hiking gear, and I could still be paying rent and eating out and getting groceries, and all of those things would be covered for 6 months. I knew that I needed a very, very heavy security blanket in order for me to make a jump like this. With setting aside those 6 months of gratuitous expenses into a high yield savings account so that I was still making a little bit of money on having that much in savings and not in investments, and those 6 months of expenses could have included an emergency fund, but for me, I had an emergency fund separately, and I named this account with my 6 months of expenses in it my full-time creator fund, because I am very much a saver, and it was important to me to fully understand that this money was intended to help me move towards becoming a full-time author and being able to work for myself, that it needed to be fully designated for this purpose. I knew that it was incredibly unlikely that I would make no money for 6 months, but that's when I needed to feel safe and comfortable with making this decision. But with that, let's talk about the income streams, because they have changed in ways that I was not expecting them to over the course of the last year. While I was still at my last job, offering freelancing services on Fiverr was what made me feel like I could finally quit my job. It's what was bringing in the most. It is often what brings in the most month to month, and it was a large enough number without replacing my job income that made me feel like working for myself was plausible. However, then things got interesting because I started working for myself in September, and 2 months later, in November of 2022, I burned out with Fiverr work. I realized that I was taking on too much. I didn't feel fulfilled. I felt just incredibly burned out, and that's not what you want 2 months into being self-employed. And I was burned out and had to stop doing any kind of Fiverr work for 2 months. So I believe it was partway through November, and then I think I resumed in February, which now my math is telling me is 3 months. So somewhere in there, I had to take 2 or 3 months off of Fiverr, which when that was my biggest income stream was definitely a little bit nerve-wracking, because suddenly I saw the income numbers drop because I wasn't doing any kind of freelance work. I did get a question from somebody asking me, what made you want to be a freelance editor instead of a freelance writer? And I thought that this was a very interesting question, and it was something that I thought a lot about because I have thought about doing freelance writing. It's not something that excites me, me, but I decided to start offering freelance editing services because I had a lot of people on Instagram and YouTube reaching out to me and asking me if I would be willing to read their writing. And so in order to be fair to myself, I started offering critiques and editing services just because of the sheer volume of the requests that I was getting. And doing freelance critiquing and editing was so much more exciting than having to write for someone else, because I love all of the ideas that I have, and I barely have enough time as it is to work on the ideas that I want to be working on, that it seems like a waste of my creative energy to be writing for somebody else and their ideas when I could be using that time and energy to be working on my own projects. So now let's talk about how some of the income streams have changed. In September of 2022, so a year ago, the first year that I was self-employed, I made money that month from 4 sources, which is a comforting thing being self-employed and have multiple income streams, is that the odds of all of those things going to zero in the same month are incredibly low. And so it's more diverse and stable than having like a full-time job, because while you are getting consistent paychecks at something like a full-time job, you don't get the same amount of certainty as having more income streams, even if those income streams make a little bit less when you look at each of them. And having varied income streams can fluctuate month to month, so it doesn't have that same level of I know exactly how much I'm getting every month, typically. Like, you can't expect in 6 months from now to make the exact same amount of money that you made this month, kind of a thing. It's just a different kind of reassuring, because while you can lose your job and have that big paycheck go to zero, it's unlikely for all of your spread out income streams to go to zero in the same month. So it feels a little more secure, just in a different way. So in September of last year, I made money from 4 sources, and it was Fiverr, YouTube, Instagram, and I was freelance making videos for somebody else, which I thought was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed filming like an extra YouTube video a month, and it was fun getting paid for it. And it was interesting making money on Instagram because I was not getting paid for Instagram ads or anything. I was a part of the Reels bonus program, which meant that I was getting paid for the number of views that each of my Reels got on a month-to-month basis, which I thought was an absolutely amazing program. I was in it for a year, and then that stopped back in April, I believe, was the last time I got a Reels paycheck, which was incredibly sad, and I think that Instagram should go back to paying their creators. And the Reels bonus paycheck was a nice little bump every time I got my Reels bonus. But even as Instagram stopped paying, then YouTube decided to monetize their YouTube Shorts, which nowhere near as much as Instagram was paying. Let's make that very, very clear. And my YouTube channel has been monetized for a couple years now, so that's been relatively consistent, but it was new that they were monetizing YouTube Shorts. And I'm throwing this in just for emphasis, but the most that I have made from YouTube Shorts specifically in a day, not including my other YouTube views, is 82 cents. So let me be very clear that it does not pay very much, but I am glad that I am getting paid in some way or another for the short form content that I'm creating, because all of the YouTube Reels that I make, I also repost to YouTube Shorts and TikTok just for ease and more exposure. So let's compare September's income streams to July of 2023's income streams. Again, in September, it was Fiverr, YouTube, Instagram, and videos that I was making for somebody else. And in July, it was a freelance project that I'm still not allowed to talk about. Hopefully by the end of the year I can, but it was a very cool opportunity that came up on Instagram, and again, I can't wait to talk to you guys about it, and I keep wanting to, but it was that freelancing project, and then Fiverr work, YouTube, my Ko-Fi account, which is basically just a donation platform where people can basically buy me a coffee a month if that's what they want to do. And then Masterclass affiliates. I'm involved in a lot of affiliate programs, and Masterclass definitely pays out the most. And I think I'm just surprised at how much the income streams have changed, and not in ways that I was anticipating. I was not anticipating Instagram to stop paying their creators. I love Instagram, please don't get me wrong, but I really miss that paycheck. And while the income streams fluctuate month to month, I do average about 5 every month. I think affiliate links integrated with everything else that I'm doing are the easiest things to involve, because for most of it, it's just like a link and a mention on YouTube or Instagram or something along those lines. Like in every single video description that I make for YouTube, I have my Masterclass affiliate code, I have the affiliate code for the light and the microphone that I use, and they're just things that I leave behind and occasionally mention on something like Instagram, just for the people that are wondering and would already be interested in looking at something like that. It just supports me a little bit as a creator. It doesn't change the price for the person buying it. It's just the company then paying a small percentage of the cost of that item back to the creator for essentially promoting it. I did get this very long question. I would be curious to hear how you want your sources of income to change in the future. For example, making more money from social media, making freelancing a smaller part of your job/income. Basically, what would your dream income split look like, and how is that different from your current sources of income? So basically, how would I want my income sources to change in the future? I know know that I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, and if you guys have been following me for a while, then you know that my eventual hope and goal is to be a full-time author, for writing books to be the majority of my job. And while I say that, I think that it would be really cool if writing covered the bills, but I also think that it would be really cool if the opposite was true, and something like social media or sharing about my books. And when I say sharing about my books, I don't necessarily mean marketing. I mean sharing the process of what goes on behind the scenes, which is most of what my YouTube channel is all about. It would also be very cool if that covered the bills, so that writing still felt like the passion on top of it, even though then the act of writing and making videos about it would be what was paying. I do not see freelancing being a part of my job forever, and I have talked a lot with my therapist about the difference and the struggle that I've been experiencing with needing to pay my bills right now. So my short-term financial goals with my overarching longer-term career goals, because it's really easy for me to get caught up in, oh, I'm going to take on another Fiverr order because that'll be an extra blank number of dollars this month, instead of saying no to an extra Fiverr order because I'm too busy and then therefore can work on my book in that extra time. And that's what I'm struggling with. And I have talked to my therapist a lot about it, and I will mention more about that here in a little bit when I talk about what I'm going to be doing moving forward. But in short, to answer this question, I would like to focus more on the creation side of things than the freelancing side of things. Somebody else asked me, does editing other people's stories make it harder for you to be immersed in your own? Do you have a harder time finding your own character's voice? Which is really interesting because no. The only thing is that it takes some creative energy to work on somebody else's project, which then means that I have less time and energy to put towards my own. I would say that it's been very interesting offering critiquing and editing services because I've been able to read other people's work, which amazing exposure. I can see what is working for other people's stories. I can see where storytelling is effective, where character building is effective. I can kind of like break that down for myself and learn something from what I'm reading, in addition to giving feedback to the person that's looking for it. And I have learned a lot in things that are both effective and not effective in those categories. And that is the end of us talking about income streams, and now we're going to move into talking about social media and how social media has changed things for me. Social media has played a part in me being self-employed more than I was anticipating. And what I mean by that is that I've actually been approached by technically 3, but I'm going to say 2 really unique opportunities, both of which I can't talk about. One of them was the one that I got paid for back in July, and the other one is something in the future, where because of the size of my audience and that I have kind of built a space for myself where I am a writer on Instagram and people can find me pretty easily, it has been a very, very cool experience being approached by people who are starting projects that are looking for a fantasy writer to join them and help them out. And that third opportunity that I was kind of mentioning but not really was being invited by another Salt Lake City writer to join a writing group that she was starting. So now I meet in person with other writers every Monday, which is just absolutely amazing. And if I didn't have an online presence, I wouldn't have been approached in that way for any of those things. I did get a question asking me why I keep saying that I want to be more consistent with YouTube and then I'm not. And most simply, it's easier for me to make videos when it's not the summer. I'm hoping you can see the mountains out the window right now. It is a nice day out today. It's currently 85 degrees. I want to be outside. It is hard to sit down and film a video when I know that my other option is hiking. I also struggle with posting consistently to YouTube. I've gotten really good and really consistent with Instagram because I can post a short form video every morning while I'm still in bed. But with my YouTube videos, I've noticed that I like longer videos. I currently have 3 unedited videos with about 2 hours of footage each. Those things are each going to take me probably like 5 to 6 hours to cut down, and it's just such an incredibly long process, and I found myself drawn to the longer form videos. So the ones that end up somewhere between 25 and 45 minutes long in their completed form, like my masterclass videos. Like, I love taking and reviewing masterclasses. I really enjoy getting to learn that. But then I want to film like a review about it, and then it takes me, 3 hours to film the content for, and then it just sits on my computer for months because I don't feel like I necessarily have the time that I want to devote to editing and posting those videos, even when that's what I'm drawn to creating right now. But it's also hard to justify not making those videos when I believe that 2 of my most viewed 3 videos are masterclass and essentially just writing class reviews. So it's hard to justify making shorter videos, even though that would be easier on the editing side of things. It makes a lot more sense with the consumer and what I'm feeling drawn to for me to make longer form videos, which just means fewer of them per month. Before we get to talking about life outside of work, let's talk about adjusting to working for myself. To incredibly paraphrase, the essential role for my last job was being on call. That meant for 24 hours a day, for 5 days a week straight, I needed to have my phone ringer on and my computer on me just in case something popped up. Yes, I had work that I needed to do on top of that, but I needed to be ready to jump in case somebody needed me to fix something or change something or whatever. So adjusting to working for myself, I had to essentially detach myself from my computer and learn that it was okay for me to be away from my computer. That if I wanted to go on a hike, I had to put my heavy computer into my hiking backpack just to make sure that if I got a call, I could immediately get on and do something about it. I also had to adjust to sleeping without my ringer on, and this was such a blessing. And this is honestly like my favorite thing about moving away from my last job into working for myself, because I would get calls at 3 a.m. and I would need to be up on the first ring, answer it, and then, be able to respond to an email, change a flight plan, or whatever it was. It was very hectic, and being able to not have my phone set to ringer when I go to bed is an absolute blessing. On top of that, and the constant stress of having to be aware, again, 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, I was having a lot of panic attacks at my last job. I have not had a single panic attack since I quit and started working for myself. I would say that things are definitely still stressful because I still have to worry about paying my bills, but not anywhere near the same kind or level of stress that I was experiencing in my last position. Therapy has done absolute wonders for this. It is so helpful to be able to talk to somebody once a week about what I'm experiencing, how I'm feeling, and so on. My therapist is so good at helping me recenter and refocus on the things that matter moving forward, and I am so incredibly grateful for her. As a part of going to therapy, my therapist also had several other people going out on their own to work for themselves, so she started an entrepreneurship group, which I probably meet with once a month-ish, to talk about our goals, to talk about what we're struggling with, and to just kind of remind us that we are not the only ones doing this. Even though we are in very different fields, what we are experiencing is also being experienced by the other people. The imposter syndrome, the fear, trying to figure things out. It has been incredibly helpful that my therapist wanted to start this group. Another thing that I can finally lean into now that I've adjusted to working for myself is my sleep schedule. My working schedule and my sleep schedule is something that people either love the sound of or think that I'm lazy because I stay up so late. Essentially what my schedule is I wake up somewhere between 10 and 11:30, kind of depending on the day and depending on when I went to bed the night before. I lay in bed while I'm starting work and I post my short form content, which is to Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, and TikTok. And if I have any freelance and client work, I will work on that while I'm still in bed and cozy. And then somewhere between 11:30 and 12, depending on the day, I will get up, I'll make breakfast, I'll do a little bit of work while I'm eating breakfast, and then I'll change and get ready and go to the gym. Mid-afternoon, 1 to 2 o'clock is ideal time for me. And then after the gym, I will run any errands that I have to run. I will try to leave my apartment every day because I notice that I function better if I'm leaving my apartment. And then when I get back from running errands, I will make my lunch, aka at 5 or 6, so normal people dinner time. And then if I have social plans, I will go to those, but if I don't, I will just sit down and start working. And then even if I have social plans, I will typically work until 1 or 2 in the morning. My most creative hours, I have discovered, are from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m., which I know sounds crazy to a lot of people, but I feel like there's something to either being a really early morning person or a really late night person about other people being asleep. It just feels like I can enter into a flow state so much more easily, knowing that other people are not up and can be bothering me. I have learned that I need to be open to things changing, kind of like the income streams. I had a plan for this last year, and that did not happen with the way that the income streams fluctuated, and that's okay, but I need to just kind of be along for the ride. Now let's talk about life outside of work and how that looks different now that I am self-employed. I would say the biggest change that this has made for me is the amount of travel that I have started doing since working for myself. When I first left my last job, I was traveling twice a month, which was a little ambitious, I'm not gonna lie, and I've definitely tried to keep it down to 1 week-long trip a month or 2 weekend trips a month. And recently, again, have been failing, but I feel like fall is just a very busy time, and that might just have to be part of my flexibility. Is I'm okay with this happening for fall. Yeah, but then winter's gonna hit, and I don't really wanna be here for all of winter either. It's something that I'm still learning to remain productive while I'm enjoying, but I have loved how much it allows me to go back and see family because I don't live in the same state as the rest of my family does, and I do miss them, and I love going back and seeing them. And it has been absolutely lovely knowing that I can work from anywhere. So if I want to go back to my parents' house for a week, I can go stay there, I can keep working, and everything is going to be just fine. And nothing work-wise will change for me while I'm doing that. I have noticed that I don't really take time off, at least not on the weekends. I I have found that I am the most consistent and I get the most done if I keep my schedule pretty similar day to day, meaning that I don't really take weekends off, and if I'm taking a day off, it's because I'm hiking or doing something outdoorsy or in a national park and out of cell service kind of a thing, which is really lovely because I'm not taking like the mandatory weekend. I'm taking intentional time off for the things that matter to me. And it has kept me more productive because then on Mondays, I'm not feeling like I have to catch up and get back to where I was on like Thursday or Friday. Because of this flexibility, I set a hiking goal for the year, and I'm not doing that great at it, especially now that we are solidly in fall, but I did set a hiking goal and I have done quite well at this hiking goal, and I'm going to try my best to get as far as I can into this goal before the end of the year. I set a goal to hike 50 days or 200 miles, and I'm not there yet, but I will try, which is going to mean a lot of hikes in the next month. I had a period of time over the last year where I was sober curious, and as a part of being sober curious, I participated in 75 Hard, which is a workout challenge / like a mental toughness challenge where you do 2 workouts a day of 45 minutes each. You try to drink a gallon of water a day. I don't. I just cannot physically drink that much water, but I did drink more than I normally do. You don't drink alcohol. You try to stick to a diet. I'm already vegan, so I didn't restrict myself more than that. And you're supposed to read 10 pages of a nonfiction book a day. I kind of made it a little bit more flexible for myself than that, and I really focused on the working out and the no alcohol. And I really loved that experience, and I've thought about doing it again since then. I haven't yet, but I thought about it. An unexpected side effect of working for myself, and I cannot promise if they're like correlated or not, is I have a little bit of a spice tolerance now. I used to have a very like white person palate and not be able to do like any spice whatsoever. I love flavorful food, but I can't do spice, or I couldn't do spice. I can't say can't anymore. I can do a little bit of spice, and I've really enjoyed working on that, and I'm going to continue working on that because I want to be able to eat food that's like a little spicy. But yeah, unexpected things from being self-employed. All right, now the thing that you guys have all been waiting for is the writing progress. Let's start off with a question in this one. Have you really worked more on your own novel since becoming self-employed? No, which goes back to me talking to my therapist about shifting from right now goals to longer term goals, or at least like an in-between goal. So I'm still making money now, but I'm also working towards where I want to be in the future. Joining a writing group has been absolutely incredible because even if I don't write for a couple days, on Monday nights, I know that I'm sitting down and I'm working on my book. For me right now, last night was a Monday. I worked on my book for an hour and 45 minutes straight. And when I'm working on my book in my apartment, I feel like I have to do sprints of like 20 to 30 minutes. I feel like my attention span is just not there. When I am at writing group, I'm writing. Joining a writing group has been such a helpful thing for me. So as far as writing progress goes, this also kind of gets into what I'm doing in the future and my goals moving forward. But moving forward with my writing, I decided to take the month of October off of freelance book editing in order to put the time and energy that I was putting into other people's works into my own in an attempt to finish draft 6 of my high fantasy book that I've been working on forever that I call Project DE. I would love to finish this book. I'm not like over it because I love this book, but I would like to be done with it. I'm so ready to be done with it, and I'm ready to start book 2 or something else. I just don't want to be editing the same book anymore, so I'm working on pushing to the end of draft 6. That all being said, I am looking forward another 6 months. I really like the 6-month chunk of time because it's long enough for me to achieve some big goals, but also short enough where I don't get overwhelmed with how big picture I am looking, and I feel comfortable making that decision. I have put a new income stream on my plate, which is doing a social media management gig with 2 fitness influencers that I absolutely adore, and I'm honestly so excited to be working with them. I've been doing it for a couple weeks now. I'm loving it. I think that it is such a fun extra thing for me to be doing that just happens to pay well, and I love that. I'm going to be focusing on making more content around writing because I am focusing on finishing draft 6 of my book, hopefully then proofreading draft 7, and then hopefully being done with DE, but we will see when that happens. I'm just really ready to focus on the longer term goals of I want writing to be my life, and I really want writing to pay the bills, which means I need to either self-publish or get a book deal somewhat soonish. And I am working towards that. I still have not set up my author website. I need to do that. I have a podcast idea that I would like to start. And I'm really just trying to focus on progress is progress, which is something that I used to say in my videos quite often and have since kind of fallen off about, but progress is progress. I'm really trying to focus on the progress that I'm making rather than getting annoyed with the fact that I'm not already there. I've also had a couple people ask me if I'd be willing to do coaching calls, which is something that I'm considering, just to talk about writing or content creation creation or whatever you guys want to talk about. Let me know if there's any interest for that down in the comments below. And I really want to thank all of you guys for being here on my journey with me. And one of the best ways to support me is to watch my videos, like my videos, share my videos. And I really appreciate all of the support that I've gotten so far, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the future brings with all of this. With that, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Sara Lubratt. Here's to the next 6 months, hopefully the next year or two. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.